Let's get to the big three.
Number 3.
According to the New York Times, Democrats are dropping $20 million on a new project. It's called Codenamed SAM, short for Speaking with American Men, a strategic plan. And it promises investment to study the syntax, language, and content that gains attention and virality in these spaces.
Yeah, Dems regrouping in a terrible way. They think they're going to win over men by spending $20 million and going to elite hotels. I'll explain.
Number 2.
What Trump is basically doing is saying, actually, no, we're actually not going to do this anymore. We're not going to make the hardest working people subsidize the lives of the fabulously wealthy. We're going to do the opposite. We're going to take $3 billion from Harvard and give it to trade schools so that working class people can afford to buy homes.
Yes, Harvard, you can't win. As Trump gets more aggressive with the Ivy institution, why I believe the focus on Harvard has them losing, even if they end up winning somehow, some way in court.
Number 1.
Any further step of Putin into the rest of Ukraine, we will immediately favorably consider requests for weapons and trainers on the ground. We have to make it plain that he's got to stop where he is.
Yep, that is Charles Gradhammer back in, get this, 2014, talking about the threat of Vladimir Putin. He knew exactly who he was. Meanwhile, Putin is pushed too far and loses his best ally in the West as his major offensive and insincere ceasefire talks have Trump ready to slap sanctions and I hope give Ukraine massive weapons to hold off the Russian war machine that really wants to get into gear this summer. And let's bring in Karl Rove on that. Karl, have you had a chance to meet Vladimir Putin in all your travels?
Oh, sure. With President Bush, met him several times. First of all, he's a tiny guy, and he is, like a lot of small people, he throws his shoulders around. There's a sense of arrogance about the guy, and he's a thug. And he's changed. He was in the early 2000s after he first came to power. He was trying to figure things out and was sort of tentative, but he was radicalized by the explosion of liberty and freedom in the so-called color revolutions of 2004. And after that point became very concerned about what he saw as the predominant position of the former, Soviet Empire, the former Russian Empire in that part of the world, and felt that the growth of democracy in places like Poland and the Baltics and the Czech Republic and the Slovakia and Hungary, et cetera, Ukraine, most of all, were a threat.
And obviously he's acted on it and he's getting some positive reinforcement. In retrospect, now he's knee deep in this war. Well, J.D. Vance said something interesting that kind of plays into the Wall Street Journal story today. He said, I don't know if Putin knows how to get out of this. And then the Wall Street Journal says that 45% of his economy is military-based, that they're building howitzers and tanks and ammunition, and that's what's keeping that country employed?
Yeah, but how are they doing it? They're selling oil to America's adversaries via surreptitious means, and frankly at lower than international prices because they're so desperate to get sales. That's unsustainable over the long haul. And the question is, how long can he sustain it? And a West that is united, that says we will not allow Russia to take by force and destroy its neighbors simply because they are living in liberty and are oriented towards the West, not towards the East. If we and our European allies stand up and say no, then the end is coming for Putin sooner rather than later.
Look, Zelensky wants to buy the weapons, the Patriots, and sadly, it looks like we don't have the production to get it to him without stripping our own protection. So the U.S. is now urging our neighbors to give them Patriots that we've maybe allowed them to purchase. Here's Senator Markwayne Mullen, cut 2.
He's tried to work with Putin. His patience is running thin. And you and I know President Trump personally. When he's done with you, he's done. And if Putin continues to push this envelope the way that he is, he's going to give Zelensky the tools he needs to fight back on the full scale and full support of the United States. But Europe needs to take a lead. This isn't our fight. This isn't in our backyard. This is Europe's backyard.
So, Senator Markwayne Mullen, a close confidant of the president, he's speaking, I think he's almost hoping, so are Republicans in the Senate, with 80-plus votes in support of severe sanctions with details that Lindsey Graham, I guess, authored They're ready to go with this. It's veto proof.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, let's talk about Putin for just a second. What is he doing? There are two explanations. One is that he's making a big mistake, that he is sitting there, saying, I can bully the Ukrainians and ignore Trump. And so I'm moving forward, and nothing's going to stop me, and I'm going to play Trump for a sucker. The other one is that he says, I know that there's a point at which I'm going to have to appease Trump. But in the meantime, I intend to push this as far as I can to get as much territory and as much leverage. And hopefully, what happens is that the last tranche of U.S. aid, which was made under Biden, runs out, and that leaves Ukraine in a highly vulnerable position, and it's unable to defend itself because the new aid is not flowing now. One's stupidity and the other is a calculated gamble. I think he is taking the calculated gamble. I think he hopes that the U.S. aid runs out, that the Europeans don't step up, that the U.S. doesn't step up in time, and so that he has a major breakthrough in which he takes either large chunks of the country or takes the country entirely itself. But that's a dangerous gamble because he's clearly showing disrespect to Trump.
I know, and it was his. And I just thought he was smarter than that. I don't say he's not evil, but I also thought he was one of these street smart guys who understands he's got this rare opportunity for a guy who said, I could help you get your economy going right away. Let's just do it. You shut it down. We'll do some agricultural deals. We're going to do some rare earth deals. We'll help you with the transition. Not another American president would have done that, nor a Western leader. And I thought he would have recognized that.
Yeah. And look, there's $300 billion of Russian assets that are locked up in Europe. What he's gambling is that he can get Trump to release those $300 billion in assets.
Sure. And
that helps his economy regain its footing. On the other hand, that's one of the ultimate cards that Trump has. He could say to the Europeans, go ahead and see you're holding those assets, turn those assets over to the use of the Ukrainians, and in that case, it'd be a very problematic issue for the Russians.
All right, so I want to talk about what's happening with Harvard and the White House. They now have frozen. The State Department has decided to freeze all international students to further notice. There's about 1.3 million who come to our universities, big and small, not just elite institutions around the country. And now the president has already shut off additional funds that were going to go to Harvard. Here's the press secretary, Caroline Levitt, Cut 14.
I watched the left-wing cable media, CNN, on my television in the White House all day today, and they were up in arms over the president's common sense policy when it comes to federal funding for Harvard. And not a single one of those left-wing reporters can answer the question of why an institution that is pushing anti-American values with a $53 billion endowment should receive a single penny of taxpayer funds. And the president is more interested in giving that taxpayer money to trade schools, in programs, in state schools, where they are promoting American values, but most importantly, educating the next generation based on skills that we need in our economy and our society. Apprenticeships, electricians, plumbers. We need more of those in our country.
So he wants to redirect the money to trade schools. He froze $100 million in all to going to Harvard. They sued back. So I think by exposing it, Harvard's losing even more, support.
Well, first of all, let's see the president's proposal. If this is so important to give the millions, hundreds of millions of dollars that Harvard was receiving to apprenticeship programs and to community colleges and trade schools, let's see the proposal.
Have a press conference, right, with the trade school presidents.
Yeah, well, but it's also, look, he has to have either authority in existing statutes or, more likely, new authority. He certainly has to have the permission of the U.S. Congress to spend the money that way. And if it's a new program, he's got to go to the Congress. We are not in an era of kings again. It is not King George III. So he's got to go to the Congress and ask for it. But the other thing is,
Can you redirect? Can you redirect without going to Congress?
Well, if there's an existing program,
okay.
but moving money from one program to another, if it's moving it gets complicated. But in all likelihood, he's going to have to go to Congress and ask for what's called a rescission, the authority of Congress, approval of Congress to move money from one kind of a program to an entirely different kind of a program. This is not like we're moving stuff within the budget for the Department of Defense. This may be, moving it from the Department of Education to the Department of Labor, and that will require Congress to agree.
Lastly, when it comes to politics, I've never seen the Democratic Party in more disarray. Rahm Emanuel says it's toxic. I'm running as a centrist. AOC and Bernie Sanders, huge crowds because they're running against the oligarchy. And now you have the unmasking of a zombie president in Joe Biden is even more exposed than even you and I probably thought it would be, because you have a left-wing anchor co-writing a book. So your thoughts about where this party is right now, that party is?
Well, it's broken, and it's at war with each other. Now, some of this happens after you lose a big presidential election. No ifs, ands, or buts. But this is worse. But I will say this. I think it's interesting, with maybe the exception of 1972 and George McGovern, the people in the modern era who've ended up leading the Democratic Party have not been the most left-wing candidates. So, AOC and Bernie get big crowds in weird places like, Idaho and Utah. But at the end of the day, somebody like Rahm Emanuel, who's more towards the center of the American politics, admittedly a liberal, but more towards the center of American politics than Bernie and AOC, is likely to be the Democratic nominee.
Really?
And that's my view, and history suggests that. Think about it. With maybe the exception of Michael Dukakis, who was more a technocrat, but also was very liberal, the Democratic Party has tended to pick people who are sort of more mainstream in the nature of being Democrats, particularly in this century, if they want to win. So I also think because of Biden, this is likely to be an election in which, if you were not in the cabinet and not in the Biden administration, seeing them on a regular basis, you got a better chance of winning. That is to say, governors, like the governor of Kentucky, or the governor of Michigan, or the governor of Colorado. All of it, governor of Pennsylvania, the governor of Maryland, they all have a better shot, in my opinion, in 2028, because they don't have to answer the question of, well, didn't you see how bad he was in the meetings you had with him? And remember, Rahm Emanuel is on the other side of the world. Yes, he was in the Biden administration, but he's the ambassador in Japan, sitting in Tokyo, mixing it up in the East. So, it's going to be a really interesting contest to see how they put themselves back together. But you mentioned in your intro this $20 million study of, what about males. How do we talk to males? We have to do so in a deep voice, and how's your, what beer do you like? What sports do you follow? I mean, it sounds like Margaret Mead, an anthropologist floating around, some weird island in the South Pacific with a peoples who've never been, met by the humanity. I mean, it's like, some anthropologist deep in the jungles of Africa looking at, we're studying gorillas. I mean, it's like weird.
It is crazy. But also you have to do it at a Four Seasons and cost a lot of money. That's where having these meetings, how to meet men, how to win over men. Karl Rove, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
You bet. All the best.
Very lucid, very well informed. He speaks quietly and a little bit slowly, but,
He's totally focused. He's very sharp, and the proof is in the performance.
But comparing that guy's mental state, I've said it for years now, he's cogent. Mm-hmm. But I undersold him when I said he was cogent. He's far beyond cogent. In fact, I think he's better than he's ever been. Intellectually, analytically.
I mean, look, that was, as I said, it was a cheap, a cheap fake. That was definitely a cheap fake. It was.
I think that you were mocking his stutter. Yeah, I think you were mocking his stutter, and I think you have absolutely no standing to diagnose somebody's cognitive decline.
So That was just so damning, even no matter how many times you're listening to it, because we heard it in real time. I would play on this show. I'm like, how could you actually watch him on the stage wander off into the Amazon, wander off with Maloney at the G20? You see him scream things out arbitrarily. This guy can't stay in power on his Russia speech in Ukraine. How many times are we going to watch him mumble his way through speeches that are on the prompter before people just say, of course he's not with it, let alone run again? Here's Jake Tapper admitting that Lara Trump was right.
She was right, and I was wrong. I did not see in the moments he was having, I did not see that as cognitive decline. She did. Our reporting suggests that she was correct. So I feel humility. I've apologized to her.
My reporting, the reporting is your reporting or whatever Alex Thompson did and let you put your name on. So Lara Trump finally responded, said, what really did happen with Jake Tapper?
Jake Tapper called me about 2 months ago, actually. And he said, I have this book coming out, and I know everybody's saying that I should apologize to you. I plan, whenever the book comes out, to go on TV and I will say, you were right and I was wrong. It feels a little bit too late to me. I do appreciate that he did keep his word, though, and come out and say that I was right.
It wasn't a stutter. Mark Penn joins us now. Mark, you were also one of the people who knew that Biden was not okay. He was not functioning well to begin with. You've said that all along. Why did you feel free to say that when so many other people in a party you spent a lot of your life in weren't?
Well, look, you can't let partisanship dictate facts, right? You're going to have to look at facts as they are, as you see them, and I think this is an interesting study in the ability. Look, the Democrats convinced 45% of the people until that debate that he was competent. And the press, frankly, he never sat down for an interview. I mean, the only interview he really did was her interview. And then the only time he was on his own and couldn't depend on notes and pre-programmed questions. I mean, you could see the operation that was going on in order to prevent this. But, people people in the Democratic Party wanted him to do what he was doing. And they were getting what they wanted by whoever was controlling the presidency. So, everybody went along with it. And the truth really came out afterward. And it came out in a way that was undeniable. I mean, the shock and horror. If you sat there and watched that debate, the shock and horror that people had in how he did on that debate, calling out about how we defeated Medicare or whatever it was unbelievable. I mean, it was unbelievable, right?
Because it was over the top, considering I was not that shocked to see him. Like, yeah, he was terrible. But I watched him at different events where I go, we'd play sound bites on the radio show. I go, I have no idea what he just said. But then he fell apart. So this leads me to one thing, just your opinion. After seeing this book and seeing everyone come out and say how bad he was and the Politburo around him that even kept cabinet secretaries away, do you believe that somebody pushed for that debate in June that wanted him out? Because nobody was clamoring while Donald Trump was in New York at these trials and is trying to get through the civil trial and the criminal trial and knew what was coming up next. He comes out and says, hey, I want to debate you. Now we know a highly edited spot. He goes, I hear you're off on Wednesdays. And I think to myself, what? Why do you want to debate him? Of course he's going to. And Trump said, yeah, I'll debate you any rules. Doesn't matter. Like, who did that knowing? Everybody who knew him well knew he couldn't perform well. Why did they do that?
I thought that at first, I will have to say, and I said at the time, people are interviewing and saying, it's very odd that debate is when it is, because it's the only thing that could possibly derail his nomination is that debate.
Yes.
Had they just not done the debate until the nomination was sealed, that would have been it. There would have been no going back, no matter how crazy he was on the stage, right? And so I was shocked at that. And for a while, I thought that. But it really appeared to be that they just underestimated Donald Trump, that they thought it really didn't matter what Joe Biden would say. Donald Trump would fall apart, right, and be seen as the way they saw Donald Trump. Because you have to understand, the distorted view that they had of Donald Trump was so bad and so negative and so beyond, what you could really what the American public saw in that debate. Was so that because also I've asked all my friends, was there somebody? Did somebody? Was, somebody like Anita Dunn? Was it a setup? And really the answer seemed to be no. Right. And I think it would have been discovered by now in the Tapper book. And one thing I want to say about Tapper, I went back in 2016 and I was trying to find who actually called 2016, because remember, very few people thought Donald Trump could win in 2016. And the only person I found who called it correctly, state by state, with the reason, was Kellyanne Conway. And she did it in an interview with Jake Tapper, and he laughs at her the entire interview.
Really?
So, it's really something for Tapper to try to, put on kind of a saint hat here when yes, he was wrong. And he was part of the conspiracy to, Joe Biden, right or wrong, and so I don't know. It's ironic that was his pattern, right?
Wow. I great research on your part. I didn't, I must have missed that. I do watch other channels and I missed that. And Kellyanne Conway was right about a lot of it because I talked to her when she first got hired, and a lot of the stuff that she said when she first got hired, because she was a contributor here first. And she's like, oh, yeah, we got these states, this state, this state. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, that's pretty bold. He goes, no, we'll be able to do this. And I thought, okay. And it ended up being right. But I will look for that clip back in 2016. So I got to ask you, I remember succinctly when Mitt Romney lost to Barack Obama. The autopsy that took place, Michael Steele left a huge debt. The autopsy that took place, we're going to fix this. We're going to make sure we talk better about the border to not alienate Hispanics. We're going to change everything. The autopsy never took place. Donald Trump came in and disrupted everything, and he ended up winning. And we know the Trump era, we're in the middle of it right now. So what do the Democrats do? Because as I look at this, you see that the people that are getting the biggest crowds are AOC and Bernie Sanders. I don't really see the moderate. Senator Fetterman is highly ridiculed. Rahm Emanuel comes out and says, I'll be in the middle and our party's in disarray. And then I see what's happening with the governor's race. Becerra and Kamala Harris are being attacked now by Villagrosa for people that covered up Joe Biden's decline. So I'm wondering, if I look at this party and take a stand over it, 3,000-foot view, 30,000-foot view, I see a mess. What does Mark Penn see?
Yeah, there's no coherent or organized Democratic Party right now, nor would I really expect there to be. Look, there's the left has grown in power very significantly in the Democratic Party. They had a deal with Joe Biden or Jill Biden or whoever the deal was to basically get all the appointments and all the judges and a lot of the bills, and the moderates were basically quiet, and the one or two that stood up on a couple of issues are no longer there. But it is in an unwinnable position. It can't win with the extreme positions that the left is trying to sell. AOC can generate a crowd, but she's not going to generate a crowd that's going to get more than 25% of the country. And so there is no organized Democratic Party. The Democratic Party has in the past, worked itself up. I always point out 72, they got one state, 84, they got one state. The Republicans were in the wilderness for a long time, the 40s and the 50s, till they came back with Eisenhower. So parties can go out and can be disorganized and can be out of step, right, for a while. And sure, there's going to be an open primary, and until there's a primary, and look, there'll be the midterms. So the midterms, might bring something back in terms of coherence, yeah. But I'm hard pressed to see that is the case. They mostly will just run against, have the security of running against Trump, so they all can parrot that message without much help. Come the presidential election, they're not going to be running against Trump anymore. They're going to be running against a fresh Republican candidate, and they're going to have a Democratic candidate who can get more than 25% of the vote. And that's not a certainty, right? It's not a certainty at all right now.
So, Mark, listen to this speculation. I never thought about it until this morning. Is that if the House flips, it might be bad for Democrats because what's going to happen? We're going to impeach Donald Trump. We're going to investigate Marco Rubio. We're going to find out what happened with USAID. And all the investigations, everything will be about Trump. And again, they'll be off message. It won't be what the party's about. It'll be, I'm against Trump in every way. I'm going to make my name in oversight. I'm going to make my name with this investigation. And one of the worst things to happen to Democrats is not to focus on who their next candidate is. They'll be focusing on blowing up this administration. How do you feel about that theory?
Yeah, I doubt that a Democratic victory in the House will usher in a new era of bipartisanship. That's not happening. And, the parties are both they're a long way from that. I think it could happen. It could very well roll out that way. But look, there's not going to be any order in the Democratic Party until there is a presidential candidate who will really take over the reins of the party and set its direction. And whether that's going to, what happened that other time before, what happened in 2020 was effectively a deal where in which Joe Biden was put up kind of as a fake moderate, right, in order to prevent Bernie Sanders becoming the nominee. I don't, there's not going to be a capability either the Bernie Sanders wing / AOC is going to win, or they're going to be defeated by somebody like a Josh Shapiro. And there's going to be a real fight. And I suppose there could be a real fight in the Republican Party too, right? I mean, it's not.
I think that Nikki Haley's going to be running. I think that JD and Rubio will run. Maybe they'll combine. I don't know. I think DeSantis is going to run again. So I think they'll be. But, Mark, one thing I would love for the country, center left. Center left. The left wing scares me. Center left does not scare me. It just have differing on certain views. But there's some commonalities. The Bernie Sanders, the AOCs, that kind of scares me. Mark, thanks so much.
Thank you. Talk to you again soon.
Mark Penn, always great. Adam Hunter has extended his stay in New York and not being Los Angeles to be on our show. Adam, I'm honored. Great job last night.
Thank you.
I wasn't aware that you're writing every day with Greg.
Yeah. Well, I'm technically freelance, but yeah, every day I come up with like the monologues, not like help with the monologues, but also do like the jokes up top.
Which I think are hysterical. I mean, it's more than just the monologue now. Start over with some jokes, then you get to the monologue thing.
Yeah.
It's a lot of writing.
It's a lot. I write like 20 to 25 jokes per day. And then, sometimes 3 will get in, sometimes 4, sometimes 6, sometimes 1. It's like, right. I mean, it's a lot of really great writers. Like,
when you leave the room, do you know if your stuff is in? When you guys, because you have your meetings every day, right?
Yeah, pretty much. What happens is I usually do it the night before because I'm in California. So I'm up, 4 or 5 hours just coming up, looking through they'll send me a list of 6 pages of topics of links to articles.
And then will you find the jokes in each one of those stories?
Yeah, I go through all the stories, and sometimes it's just it's a 30-page link, and I'm just I can't. And then other times it's easier. It's they'll be it's in the topic itself. And then I submit them, and then the next day we have a meeting with me and Joe Mackey and Gene and Joe DeVito and Greg, and then Greg will be okay, and we go through the jokes, and he'll be all right, need a new punchline for this, need a punchline for that, need this, need that, and sometimes it's hard because I'll give him 4 different alternative punchlines, and then he'll be all right, need a new one for this, but it's also I do them in Greg's voice at night, so I'm up there going and
you're still writing for yourself. Because you do stand-up.
Yeah, which is great, because the jokes that that don't get in, I could just use for my act.
Oh, okay.
Some of them. I mean, some of them is just for example, I don't know if it's going to get in, but I'll be a new study says that you could catch depression through kissing. This explains why this man's so happy, and it's you. So
that is. You mean me?
Yeah.
So you write the hit pieces on me. It's not really Greg. It's Adam Hunter.
No, it's all of us. But I don't know if I don't know if I just ruined that joke for the show tonight, but whatever. But yeah, there's another one I wrote about you that I'll show you off the air that I think it's more appropriate.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
So what was I going to ask you? So a couple of things. Last night's show, really good coming off vacation. Did you guys meet on Monday for that? Or did you write it all on the same day?
No, we got the topics on Monday, and it's hard. Sometimes you get them at like at night, like at 10 at night, 11 at night. And
on
then,
Memorial Day.
Yeah. And then it's like, hey, and they do a great job as far as like, 8 different topics for like the monologue, and then they'll be like this, and they like, oh, this is Trump, the whole Trump stories or this stories or that stories, and then we get into just other stories, and then also I'll go through the New York Post or Fox News or whatever, and then go through those because a lot of times like they like the setups are like right there, and then
I know comedians don't like to comment on comedians, but I do watch the late night shows. I tape the Tonight Show every night just to see if there's something that could help this show in particular. You bump in. I mean, the Daily Show on Mondays, really good. Jon Stewart's fantastic, right?
Yeah.
His delivery, and we used a lot of it the other week because he couldn't believe Jake Tapper wrote the book he did either. I mean, the absurdity goes beyond conservative media. But for the most part, listen, I watched every night of Letterman my whole life. Carson, it still pops up. You see the humor. I don't know what happened in the humor. It's more statements. They're like statements about how crazy he is or how bad this is, and clapping, not laughs. Do you notice the different approach?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is like, it used to just be comedy is comedy, right? Like even if you watch, like I used to love Married with Children, and Al Bundy had like the greatest fat jokes ever in like the shoe store. People would come in and they'd be like, oh, does this make me look fat? And what, The Room? I mean, whatever it was just so mean, but it was hilarious.
Right.
And it didn't matter. And then they got into this thing of like, oh, you guys should only punch up. Only make fun of people who are doing better than you. But then you're like, well, who's decides who's up?
Right.
Who are you? So it's like whenever I do a comedy show and if there's a handicapped person in the crowd or whatever it is, I make fun of everybody because everyone wants to be made fun of equally, Right. But some reason people go, oh, they're not good enough to be made fun of, or they're too sensitive, or they can't take a joke. And you're like, why are we not treating everyone equally?
Absolutely.
So then
equally bad.
Equally bad. So then what happens, I think, on these shows is that on the Tonight Show, they go, okay, there's so many filters. So, we can't make fun of this person because they'll get upset. Or we can't make fun of this person because I get upset. Oh, well, this is too much. This is too mean here. This is too mean. So now you have like 3 people that you could say, okay, we're going to make fun of, which is going to be Donald Trump, and it's going to be
Donald Trump,
MAGA,
JD Vance.
Vance. Right. So now you could, every night, it's
Musk.
just about that. Whereas like Greg takes shots at everybody. And and it doesn't matter skinny, fat, old, young, white, black. It's just comedy for comedy. He literally says nobody's off limits.
Not many people say this, but Jerry Nadler plays a very valuable role in your life, right? I mean, people like that. I mean, you have give Jerry Nadler more publicity than anybody.
Oh, I mean, like the other day, I mean, I wrote a joke about like, I mean, it was so stupid, but about like, they're like, Democrats say that they're like, people were like explaining, what animal represents their thing, and it was like, oh, well, Republicans are like lions and Democrats are like, I don't know, snails. And then I wrote like, well, what about the cows? And it's like The View. So it's always like, The View is always of like, oh, they love Joy Behar in India because cows are sacred. And then it's just, those are the best because I don't know, it's just funny. It's just, the thing is, The View's not even big. They're not even like big people. They're not, like, it's just funny to me.
Oh, I know. You make him big. So how do you feel like when you saw the video of Macron get pushed in the face by his wife, your sense is, I don't want to insult the French, so I'm going to back off? Or?
No. Right, even said, I mean, even yesterday on the show, I said she was probably mad because he was wearing deodorant. So
that was great.
Right away, because people know that like the French didn't really wear deodorant. It's like kind of a new thing in France is deodorant. I mean, like the last
they don't shave their armpits.
50
That's
years.
true.
Yeah. So that's there. The whole thing about Macron being his wife being trans, that thing was like, I guess they're a little sensitive because I don't know, maybe she there's some issues there. So there was issues there.
There's a 30-year gap.
Yeah.
They met at 15. She was 39.
He was a teacher. That in the U.S. that would be a huge scandal if a teacher dated a drama teacher dated her student and then got married. But even on the show, I said like Macron seems to be like like Trump's always arm wrestling him, and then last week some guy was like pulling his finger.
You saw that?
Yeah. And now he's getting smacked like.
What's this guy?
It's like the Mr. Bean. What's that guy that always falls down back in the day? Like people, and that's basically like he's like Chevy Chase in SNL back in the 70s.
And meanwhile, he is all about sophistication and the tight-fitting suits, but in his real life, it's all falling apart. Doesn't it also show you that everyone's like his life is, even though he's president of France?
Yeah,
just like everybody else, you get in arguments, and sometimes your wife pushes you in the face.
Yeah, I mean, it seemed like it was a smack, though. It didn't seem like it was a push.
What do you think, Allison? Do you think it was a smack or do you think it was a push? I felt like she pushed his face. Like
it was like a combination in between, but I also feel like it seemed like it was a very normal thing for her to do to him, but who does that to their spouse?
And by the way, and then he tried to grab her hand. Oh, did you see there was lip reading in New York Post? Did you see that? And she said, at least pretend or something. I think we have it. Lip reading to find out what went wrong there. So Eva goes, at least pretend or at least fake it like that we're getting along. I know what happened. You know what happened.
What happened?
There's no doubt about it that he had an affair.
You think so?
Yeah. That's the type. That's what you do. You push him in the face. He's like, oh, come on. What's the big deal? You're so much older than me. Is probably what he said.
I mean, maybe. I mean, look, when you're younger, when you're 17 and the girl's like 37, it's creepy, but there's something like, oh, wow, she's an older woman, you know? You're like, oh, when you're 25 and she's 45 and she knows her stuff. But then you get to be like 60 and she's 80.
Listen, they're there.
And then it's just an 80-year-old woman at that point. You're like, I mean, maybe they have like an open relationship or something. I mean, he is the leader of a country. But
right. Hey, do we have any Scott Pelley? Yeah, can we play a little this? Tell me if you think this is appropriate for Adam Hunter. Did you graduate college?
Yeah, no, I didn't graduate college.
Did you try?
I went to Binghamton.
Right, and what happened?
And then I dropped out because I ended up getting sued for $20 million for causing a riot on campus with my television show called These Nuts. And but it went to the Supreme Court of Brooklyn. They threw it out of court. But it was so much fun having that show. It's a long story.
So you had a show in college?
Yeah, I had one show one night, and then it got banned. In fact, they banned all television shows at SUNY Binghamton.
What did you do?
Nothing. What happened was I used to wrestle in college, and I was cutting weight all the time, losing 20 pounds. So we used to call and prank call the TV station, the local television station, and they would try to have like real. Could you curse on this show or no? Or
I'd rather you know.
Okay, so they'd be like, I'd be like, hey, do you know Devane? And I'm like, who Devane? And just whatever we would say. They would try to have a conversation. Anyway, so then I ended up wanting my own show because I quit the wrestling team, and I was like, I got to do something with my life. So they gave me my own show, and it was Monday night. And then people were then making fun of me. Like everything I was doing to other people, they were doing to me. Like,
your own show was campus television.
Yeah, on campus television. Anyway, this girl calls up and she's like, hey, you swept me at the gym and you're going to talk. And I see you checking me out. Not true. At the gym, I was cutting weight. I was not. But anyway, she's like, my name is so-and-so and everyone's going to make fun of me. So then everyone started calling in to make fun of her. So then she decided to jump in front of the television. She came out to the studio, stood in front of the camera and was like, all you people that are making, and then the whole school was
This is one show.
First show. Now all these people are making fun of her, right? I'm laughing, but I'm sticking up for her. Then she leaves, then the guy that she was making fun of, this guy in the soccer team, Seth Thomas, who was like the captain of the team, he came down and started like getting into it with her. And it was like Jerry Springer, basically.
On a show.
On a show. They ended up going back to their room. People started throwing water balloons at her. They canceled all the shows. She sues the school for $20 million, me for $20 million, and the kid Seth for $20 million. My dad's like, you go to college for 1 week, and you come home with a $20 million lawsuit. Like, can't you just go to class like everyone else? But I was like, this is so much fun. I want my own talk show. So I'm like, I want to be a talk show host. This is great. So then I dropped out of college, and I ended up going to Hofstra for a year, and then Hunter for a semester. I didn't finish, but that's how I got into comedy, basically.
And then you just started from there. And how many years ago was that?
25 years ago.
Wow,
doing comedy.
You're doing great. So your parents are no longer worried?
My dad used to manage Alice Cooper. So he was like in show
He understands
business.
it.
Yeah, he kind of understands it. He does understand it. But it was hard. I mean, look, I started off doing comedy every day in Times Square, giving out flyers, barking, begging people to come to shows. I can't tell you how many times I've slept in my car at night. I've driven to San Diego from California with like no money. If I didn't have
You
a
mean
good
from
set,
Los Angeles, India?
Yeah, if I didn't have a good set, I wouldn't be able to have enough gas to get back. I was looking through my couches for quarters and nickels and dimes to get McDonald's. Just travel all around the world. But it's the last since when I got on Last Comic Standing and I was a finalist, and even that was a whole another story. It's been going really well. Since then, basically, I've been to Tonight Show twice. Been on a couple world tours. Like this year, I was in Australia, opening for Russell Peters. Went to New Zealand, Japan, Korea, China, Thailand.
Do they think you're funny in these other countries? Do they get your humor?
Yeah, in South Korea and the Philippines, you go out there and it takes a second to translate, because I'm the opener, so I go on cold, and I could see them basically filtering my jokes from Mandarin to English. So the first couple minutes are a little tough because it's just the rhythm thing, wow. And then at minute 4 or 5 they catch on, and then from 5 to 25, because I was doing 25 minutes, then that would be really good.
And do you read through the Filipino newspapers?
No, I mean there's some basic stuff, we went to Thailand and we walked around the red light district, and one girl was like, "Oh, you want one girl? You want two girl?" And I held up my wedding ring, and the girl's like, "Oh, you want 5 girls?" Right. There's a lot of basic things that just happen that you're like, "Oh, this is hilarious." When I was in, we went to Saudi Arabia. We went to Doha, actually. Doha was crazy because the audience is all covered up. A lot of the women are just, they're wearing cloth. All you can see is their eyes. Yeah. And I'm like, Russell, how do we know if people are laughing? And they're like, oh, you're just gonna see their bodies move back and forth. And which was the case, literally the case.
So they can't make noise?
They can make noise, but you
can't see their mouth.
You can't hear it. You can't see their mouth.
It's crazy.
And then also a lot of the guys have 4 wives over there. So, and Russell told me, he's like, hey, don't compliment people's stuff because they're very proud people here. So if you're like, hey, nice watch, they'll be like, oh, you want it, my friend? They'll just try to give it to you. Money's nothing to a lot of these people. It's so I'm like, hey, I told the guy, your wife is pretty. And he's like, oh, you want her? I have 3 more. Those kind of things you kind of pick up.
I don't know if it translates to America,
yeah.
But you kind of got to leave it there. All right, more with Adam Hunter in a moment. You listen to the Brian Kilmeade Show. Adam will tell us exclusively where he's going to be next.
Yes.
Hey, we are back, and Adam Hunter is off to St. Louis right after this. KTFK is, I knew that. KFTK, one of our great affiliates, went to St. Louis. Where are you going to be, Adam? Where are you tomorrow night?
I'm at the St. Charles Funny Bone Thursday to Saturday, and then the following week, I'm in Naples, Florida, at Off the Hook Comedy Club.
So those comedy clubs, you'll just go in and you'll headline, you get out.
Yeah.
Someone's booking you from California.
Yeah, exactly.
So how does your family handle it when you're away so much?
It's hard. It's definitely hard. Sometimes it's one of those things where I've been married 8 years, and my wife's like, I'm on the road, and she's like, I miss you. On day 1, and then I love you, day 2, and then day 4, it's like, when are you coming home? I didn't sign up for this. And then I come home, and then she's like, oh, I love you. And then it was like, when are you leaving? After being home for 2 days. So
beats 2 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I tell you what, I just think in the long run, you have kids, though, right?
Yeah, I have one little daughter.
And you like her.
The best.
Yeah. And how old is she?
She's 6.
She's 6. So she wants you home all the time.
Oh, that's the hardest. She grabs my leg and she's like, you're not leaving. You need to retire. I talked to my lawyer. But I take her with me sometimes. If it's in Arizona or Vegas or Reno, if a place that I could drive to, and then she does my merch table. If I sell T-shirts, she'll do it. But then she gets upset if no one buys the T-shirt. So sometimes I'll give people money, and then they'll go to the T-shirt and buy it off her, and then they give me money back. I take it back.
Right. Let me just try to make one suggestion. Best thing we ever did. I do History, Liberty, and Laughs, and we're going to be in Dayton, Ohio, June 21st. We got a T-shirt gun.
Oh,
after we shoot out the T-shirts, people dive for it. Then you can get the same one outside.
Oh, you're right.
But it's hard to travel with because they don't like to bring the whole guns thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I once had a person in Vegas, I'm not even kidding. I had my T-shirts outside the comedy club, right outside. And in Vegas, this old woman in a wheelchair grabbed 10 shirts and started rolling away with them, like an electric wheelchair. And then someone's like, she just stole your shirts. So then I ran and took it from her. And then people thought I was robbing. And people had their phones out, like, and they're like, I'm like, no, that's not. People thought I was like stealing from a wheelchair lady. Like, yeah, like that's exactly. It was crazy.
That is. And then what is the message? Do not let people in wheelchairs to your shows? Is that the message?
They could come to the shows. I don't think she even came to the show. I think she was just It was like one of those things. It was like open. It was like in a casino. Yeah.
And if you would, how much do I pay you not to put me on Gutfeld every night? Is there a figure?
No. They. You know what's funny though? The crowd likes you so much. They laugh at Jesse and they go, "Aw," whenever you come up.
Right, but it hasn't stopped you.
No, of course not.
All right,
Yeah.
now I know you're complicit and might even be the architect. Adam Hunter, thanks so much.